Accessing library computer data.
Out there are no saints, just people.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the show, continuing our run through of Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Right now we're up to the episode called Take Me Out to the Holosuite. It is the 4th episode of the 7th season, written by Ronald D. Moore, I do believe, and directed by Chip Chalmers, which is a great name. In this episode, when Captain Solok of the Federation starship Tekumbra challenges former classmate Sisko and his crew to a game of baseball, Sisko refuses to lose to the arrogant Vulcan and begins to take the game way too seriously. We're joined by Clay, who always takes things way too seriously. How are you?
I'm good. I'm ready to gear up and get out there and blah, blah, blah. This is my favorite part of the episode.
We need to have Avery Brooks giving us a old style baseball /military yelling to get us psyched up for this podcast, I think is what I need. I need him angrily stomping around. I wanted to open with I've given Miles O'Brien, the O'Brien family, a hard time, and Colm Meaney and everything. Well, I was feeling kind of bad for him until I saw him throw a baseball in this episode, I no longer feel bad for him whatsoever.
Yeah, there's you can tell this is a team of actors.
This is not a lot of athletes mixed in there, but that's something funny. Like, I'm always kind of amazed that if you don't learn how to throw a baseball when you're younger, you apparently can never learn how to throw a baseball.
Yeah, I mean, I played baseball for like 8 years, and I arguably still don't know how to throw a baseball correctly.
Because my I don't know what it is. It seems like it's similar to riding a bike or something, but it doesn't seem to me like it's that unnatural of a thing to do. You know what I mean? So it's not like it's like a golf swing or something, which is not really what you expect to do is what the end result is. But throwing a baseball feels like it should be kind of a natural arm motion, but I guess it's not.
Well, I mean, think about like how many times in your life have you had to actively throw something that wasn't sports related?
Hardly ever. It's all sports related.
So, yeah, so it's like unless you're playing sports, I guess it is kind of an all sports are fairly awkward motions when you really look at it.
Yeah.
Throwing a ball seems like it should be fairly routine, but yeah, unless you are someone who likes throwing things around your home in a fit of rage, it's not a motion that you really do that often.
Let's take a break. I'm going to play an audio clip. Me and Clay are going to come back, and we're going to break down Take Me Out to the Holosuite.
There is another matter not listed on the formal report. I need use of a holosuite. The Tekumbra holodecks are currently under repair.
To arrange holosuite time, we have to go through Quark. He owns the only ones on the station.
Then I will speak to Quark. I have created a special program for my senior staff, and they are quite eager to resume using it.
Really?
Yes. In fact, you may find the program of some interest. It is based on an Earth game.
And what game would that be?
I think if there's one thing that takes me out of this episode, it is the un-baseball playing savvy actorness of everybody involved in this. It's pretty egregious. Like, I would say that 80% of the people here look like they've never thrown a ball whatsoever. I would say that the actress who plays Cassidy Yates is probably the most effective looking athlete out of all of them.
Yeah,
she throws a ball pretty well. Dorn looks okay throwing it, but hitting it, he looks awful. And
yeah, I was expecting when they were doing that first practice, I'm like, oh, that's really funny that Worf is just naturally good at it. That makes sense. And then they had him get up to bat, and he was terrible. Yeah. Like he looked like he'd never done that in his life. And I was like, okay.
And it's hard to judge because you don't know if they're supposed to be playing bad. Apparently, Max Grodenchik, who plays Rom, actually played ball in college, so he had to throw with his left hand, to make it look convincing that he could not play baseball. But apparently he even had some kind of inkling of consideration of going pro after college. So he's actually a good athlete. But everyone else apparently has never thrown a baseball in their life, which is strange.
Yeah. You know, I was surprised that they didn't do the usual trope for this kind of story where one of them secretly turns out to be really good.
Right, yeah. Who would that have been?
I was expecting it to be Rom.
Yeah.
Because he was I thought it was going to be one of those things where he was really shitty, and then someone was like, Rom, why don't you try batting as a righty? And then all of a sudden he was just cranking them out of the yard or something like that.
Open your eyes when you're trying to hit the ball or something. Yeah, and here comes that. No, they don't do that. They that's maybe the most interesting part of the episode is that they lose at the end.
It's like Rocky if Rocky was just not a good boxer.
Right. Yeah, I don't it's kind of an interesting episode because I don't really excuse me, I don't think it's not, it feels really like a relic of the era combined with the fact that this is a last season episode. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know how much of the plot really matters, even though I kind of enjoyed, I enjoy the plot. I enjoyed the setup of the plot, which is that first scene with Solok, the Vulcan, and Sisko talking to each other about things.
The one dripping with sexual intensity.
the one where they're clearly both begging for it. I like the setup there. They don't do anything with Solok really until the end, and even then, it doesn't really amount to anything. So it's like it's an episode that doesn't really have a story. It's kind of an extended joke, kind of a chance to let the crew and cast screw around a little bit, and it's semi about something. But I don't think that it's really a major, even in a lighthearted way. It feels like it's kind of just a fun episode, I guess.
Yeah, I think the point of the episode is that Sisko needs to lighten up, and I don't know. I thought it was perfectly fine. I thought it was great. I really enjoyed this episode quite a bit.
Yeah. I don't. I like it too for what it is, but I think that what it is stuck out to me in a way that a lot of episodes haven't felt this way. Like even the most throwaway episodes from season 6, like Time's Orphan and stuff, at least felt like they were of the show in a way that that this one for some reason doesn't feel that way. Even though I think that the baseball metaphor has been there since the pilot. Sisko's love of baseball has been there since then. The team building aspect of it makes sense and stuff like that. It's just it sticks out to me probably because it takes place with a lot of people in goofy makeup running around on a real life baseball field, so that it just it sticks out as a strange episode to me, even if I like it.
Yeah, I mean I likened it more to like Little Green Men or something like that, where they were clearly just having a good time. And there's a little bit of a message. I would like to go on record and say I, for one, am sick of this everybody gets a trophy type of culture that originates in this episode of Deep Space Nine. We finally found where that comes from, and it's bullshit, and it's causing the pussification of the young children of today.
Yeah, I'd agree.
But I don't think it's meant to be taken that seriously. I think it's just about taking these characters and putting them out of their element a bit, and just having a good time, and it's just a fun character story. I love that the Vulcans were really into baseball because it is the most insufferably statistic-based sport.
Yep.
So it makes perfect sense that they would be into baseball. I was actually a little surprised that they were so they were like power hitters. I was expecting them to be into it from more of like a mathematical standpoint.
Right, finding the weakness in the seams and stuff like that and exploiting it.
Yeah, not just,
No, they
cranking them.
They are super strong, though, as we're told multiple times, which is why they lose. So Jake was lucky to only give up 10 runs, I guess, is the way that they look at it at the end. Yeah, baseball's funny. We've had a lot of comments in the Discord and Twitter and stuff about people who don't even, and I've listened to other Star Trek podcasts where, shockingly, the hosts were unfamiliar with baseball or had never played baseball. I did play baseball, and baseball is a funny sport. And I think the timing of this came out in 1998, right? Right. This is October. So the home run, McGuire and Sosa home run chase had just finished as this episode came out, and the World Series would have been on as this was airing. In a way, what perfect timing for this episode to come out with kind of the events in the year that changed baseball forever in a lot of ways. And it's a very loving Ken Burnsy type look at the sport in a way that is much harder to do nowadays. I don't feel like you have this kind of like Cy Young worshiping, 1920s throwing the ball, spitting tobacco, like it's good for a family, it's good for America type approach to baseball. It doesn't feel that way. And this episode comes about just as that change is happening. I think it's pretty interesting. Even if I'm not convinced that the person who wrote this, which is Ron Moore, really knew all that much about baseball when he was writing it, like it seems a little bit odd, but it's a strange timing for the sport to make its way into the show, and I guess it's an appropriate time.
Well, he knew enough to know what a Fancy Dan was.
Mm-hmm. I had never heard of that. Had you heard of that?
No,
before?
I don't know. I don't know if that's a real thing.
The infield fly rule.
It's-
The infield fly rule is always the one that gets the arguments about people who are somewhat unfamiliar with baseball, because it is kind of a funny sport that it's very simple, but it has a lot of rules to it.
Yeah, I was expecting after that infield fly rule for them to be like, okay, I get it. Now, designated hitter, and everyone else be like, what?
Are we playing National League rules or American League rules? What is this?
I know. I was expecting something like that. Like when Rom was terrible in the field, I thought Sisko was going to be like, can he hit?
Right. He's
and
just a power hitter.
I thought he was going to be a really good hitter, and then be like, all right, he'll be the DH. I think what's really interesting, and one of the reasons why you don't see stuff like this too much anymore, is because the generation of the writers here, I think, is the last generation that seemed to be really reverential of baseball.
Yeah.
So that's why that stuff is coming out at the time that it was. Like they've all got that sort of. I remember watching Mickey Mantle with my dad, kind of thing. You know.
Yes.
That I don't think modern writers really have. I don't know if that's because baseball doesn't. I just don't think it holds the same place in American culture as it once did.
No, it changed quickly. It used to be a vital for all our non-American listeners. It used to be I would consider a fairly vital part of American culture in a lot of ways, and especially being Boston based, where we're Red Sox fans by default. In Boston,
you were a Red Sox fan and a Catholic, so you were just. Full of self-loathing that just never went away.
The only line that ever stuck with me from my entire university career was I had a professor who, before 2004, when the Red Sox won, said that he thought the Red Sox were special because the Red Sox fan base up until that point was unlike any other fan base in that we'd been supporting a losing team for so long. Mm-hmm. And he thought that when the Red Sox win the World Series, as they're inevitably going to do, it will forever change the fandom of being a Red Sox fan. And I think he's right about that. Like,
100%.
Being a Red Sox fan is no longer what it used to be, which was like this sort of really pure fan thing for a team that never won, but you were like still did well and still sold out, and you were happy to be a part of that tradition. But now they've won a whole bunch of World Series since then, and they feel like just another team, and the fandom feels like just another fandom.
Well, except that they're all insufferable assholes.
Yes, they're all insufferable, and we wear pink hats and stuff like now and sit on top of the monster. Yeah.
Oh God, that era of like bandwagon Red Sox fans. Oh God, put a bullet in my brain. I hated that stuff
pretty
so
bad.
much.
Yep, pretty bad.
Because exactly, it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, you were a Red Sox fan for a long time, and you were with the team when they were crappy. You know, going to a Red Sox game, you didn't expect them to win, nor did it really matter if they didn't. And then once they started winning, ticket prices start going up and people start showing up to the games who aren't really, I hate to be that person, but that's what it felt like at the time anyway, where it's like, oh, okay, they're winning now, so everybody loves them.
A lot of corporate ticket sales at that point too, because you get priced out of normal family people who can buy them, and so they're sold to more like the corporations and law firms and things that give them out as treats to their clients, basically. So it's a lot of out-of-towners coming to Red Sox games.
Yeah, same with honestly, with all the sports in Boston. When I got out of college, I could walk into the Garden on the night of a Bruins game and buy a ticket for like $25, and very quickly that went away once they started winning.
Yeah.
The biggest change actually was when the Bruins would play the Canadiens. The crowd would be more often than not Canadians, at least when I was going, because they were bussing them down from Montreal because the tickets were so cheap because the team sucked.
Yep.
So it was like most of the people in the crowd were from Montreal, which was not always the most fun to be a part of, but not to be nostalgic about shitty things.
But that's
But what is nostalgia if not reverence for shitty things?
That's kind of what this. That's kind of what the episode is. Excuse me. I don't have anything. I don't have anything against baseball, but it's definitely just of the era where that was a very reverential thing. It's very much. They did a good job in the Emissary pilot where they relate the baseball metaphor to the prophets and ability to sense like what linear time is, which I thought was really cute. But this episode doesn't have that kind of metaphor. It's really just about baseball and about the cast is going to play baseball for an episode, and we're going to see how it goes.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think it needs to be much more than that. They're just just having some fun. They're making a small point with an excuse to have a fun episode where the characters get to have fun being the characters and living out those little eccentricities and how they would apply to human sports and stuff. I think it's fun.
What's the point? What do you think the point is?
Like I said, I think it's just about Sisko realizing that it's not a big deal. You know, that there is, I guess there is grace in losing, and losing isn't necessarily a bad thing if there's other. So the ending is a little bit muddy to me because it almost feels like less of like them learning a lesson. It feels almost like an ending like The Simpsons would do or something, where it's not so much that they learn a lesson. It's just that they had enough fun that it pissed off the Vulcans, and that's what they get their joy out of.
Yeah,
like at the end of the Simpsons episode where the kids get taken away and they're gonna be they go live with the Flanders. And they're gonna be baptized, but then Homer comes and he saves them, and then they're walking away, and they're still a shitty family, but he's like, "So give me all the dirt on Ned Flanders," and Bart goes, "Well, he's got some old paint cans in the garage," and they all start laughing hysterically and like, "Oh, old painty can Ned."
Yeah.
And like they're getting their fun out of taking the littlest amount of piss out of their antagonist.
Yeah. I always feel that the episode itself is so lighthearted that Sisko's like lifelong vendetta against this guy feels like it's a little bit too intense for what they're trying to do.
Yes, it's very intense.
He's basically been haunted by this Vulcan for decades because of a wrestling mishap that he had as youth, and he's carrying it over into adulthood.
To be fair, it's less that Sisko's vendetta is intense as much as it is that the Vulcan is being a complete prick about it.
Yeah.
Where he's the one who keeps bringing it up and keeps holding it over Sisko's head. It's not so much that Sisko is just endlessly bitter. I mean, if anything, he's justifiably endlessly bitter.
This is well renowned as the start of the Vulcans as dicks characterization that they eventually start to take a little bit more and more as part of every kind of Vulcan thing. What'd you think of it?
Oh, it was fine. I mean, it makes sense.
Excuse me.
I think it's I think it at least gives them a little bit more characterization than just being flat and emotionless,
Yeah.
If their logic and lack of emotion just ends up causing them to do stuff that is perceived as them being assholes, then that makes sense to me.
Yeah, I don't because Spock always had a bit of smugness to him. And I think it's appropriate, and they, excuse me, the Vulcans in pretty much any way you can consider are superior to humans. Like they're stronger, faster, smarter, more logical, less emotional. Like they are, they would see themselves as a superior race, and I think it makes sense for them to see that way. And they see it as a purely logical, decision that they've come to. It's not like it's a decision born of hatred or racism. It's just like, yeah, we're better than you, so why should we deny that?
Yeah, like the Vulcan holding that thing over Sisko for so long. Yeah, it actually makes sense because you could read into it that he's not doing it explicitly to rib Sisko, but that he legitimately feels that it is a applicable case study for whatever it is that he's writing about or whatever it is that he's talking about. And it's just the fact that Sisko is a human who gets annoyed when that stuff keeps coming up right? That makes it so intense. Except for the fact, I think that the way that this would that it would play more that way than the Vulcan is actually just being a dickhead, is if it was reversed and it was Sisko who challenged them to a baseball game.
Mm-hmm.
Because the guy coming there specifically to challenge Sisko to a baseball game, not with any underlying, like if he had challenged him and then said, I am working on a new paper about X, Y, and Z, so I need to do some research. So how about I challenge you to a baseball, that kind of thing. That would feel a little bit more like it was a purely statistical endeavor.
Right.
But he is doing it specifically because he wants to beat Sisko again.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Yeah, I don't mind the characterization of them that way. I think it's fairly effective. I don't think they go in a too hard of a direction with it. The guy's still a Vulcan through and through.
Yeah.
And excuse me. It's just there to add what little bit of drama to the story that they can fit in. The drama feels really tagged on to me, and in my opinion, it's there to give it the flow of an episode, but it's really like the least focused on thing that they could do with it.
Yeah, I think it's necessary. It's like do you ever see the movie Equilibrium?
Yeah, with Christian Bale.
Yeah, which, man, I loved that movie when it came out. But then I watched it recently, and I was like, yeah, this is a movie that 16-year-old Clay would have loved. But it also seems like a movie written and directed by a 16-year-old. Anyway.
Gun kata. A lot of gun.
Gun kata.
Surprisingly little gun kata in it, actually, though, which is a strange part of that movie.
Yeah, well, it lives on in the John Wick movies. The thing about Equilibrium, for anyone who hasn't seen it, is that it's this mishmash of all these dystopian future ideas like 1984 and Brave New World and stuff like that. And basically the idea is that they've developed a society where everybody takes a drug to make them completely emotionless because it allows for more clear thinking or blah, 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 blah. And of course, as the movie goes on, Christian Bale stops taking it and starts, remembering what sunset is like and all that kind of shit. But I was watching an interview with the actors, and I think it was Taye Diggs was saying, like, yeah, it's really difficult to play a character who has zero emotion and have it be watchable. Mm-hmm. Because just by the nature of that, it's going to be very flat and very analytical and not a whole lot of fun to play or to watch. So you kind of have to have some wiggle room where you're like, okay, he doesn't have any emotions, but, and I think that's what they're doing with the Vulcans is they're pushing the boundary as much as they can, where it's like, all right, well, they just can't be completely cold all the time.
Right.
They need to do something. They need to have some sort of pathos or whatever.
Yeah, something to latch on to that you can, because you can't have them be antagonistic or anything without that. It's very difficult to have them be antagonistic in any kind of way. So you need to flesh out their characterization, and I don't mind it. I think it's totally appropriate. Enterprise is the series that really digs into that. As just it's set up where the Vulcans are antagonistic towards the humans, but yeah, it's good. It's fine. He's there. He's at the end. He loses or he wins the game, but loses the battle or whatever, and it's fine.
Yeah. I thought it was a good time. I thought it was fun.
It's a tough episode to discuss because it's not really. It doesn't tie into anything. It's like our podcast could basically just be us discussing like the favorite moments from it because it's fairly. Not substantial to dissect. Like what do you, I have a tough time when shows like this in the 90s do baseball games and stuff, because to me it always feels like the directors are out of their element and things don't look as good. Things look a little bit more amateurish than you would expect out of a show like this. And it's probably because the directors and everything are used to filming on the station sets. They're used to like the regular things that they have to deal with. But when they bring them out onto a baseball field, which is just this huge open space, the direction and the cinematography doesn't really look good. It looks very amateurish to me, especially those scenes where Sisko's giving his pep talk at the very start, and he's standing on the mound, and the camera just looks out at everybody else around the mound on him. It just it looks bad. Like it just looks really distracting that it's a bunch of guys in Ferengi makeup standing on a baseball field, and you can get past it or you can ignore it, but it's a difficulty I think that the directors have when they move out of something that they've done for 150 episodes into this.
Yeah, it also doesn't super help that it's like shot on a little league field.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can only punch that up so much. I thought that I mean, baseball, it's tough to shoot that stuff full stop, I think, and make it look good. And I think it's even harder to do when it's something like this where it's, you know, a sci-fi TV team doing it. But I was kind of hoping that they would do something more elaborate for the actual game. Like, I thought it was really weird when they got rid of the crowd. I thought that was really strange.
Just to save money on the extras, right? That's the only reason. But they were
already there.
Yeah, that's the. I don't know. I guess to not have to shoot them in multiple setup shots. Like, you can just pay them for an hour or whatever and get it over with.
I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, because I was thinking like, oh, it would have been so much cooler if they had played the actual game at night or something where it was a little bit more dramatic looking or whatever.
Get Kevin Costner in there to direct this and make it look fantastic.
Yeah, exactly. But I thought, in a place where I thought that really would have helped was I thought the arguing with the ump was really did not feel real. It felt really fake.
You mean the acting or the way that it's shot?
The acting, it just felt really contrived the way that Worf and Sisko were yelling at the ump, especially because you could hear what they were saying exactly. Right. And anytime you argue with an ump, it's like in wrestling when they yell at each other. It's like you don't know what they're saying, you don't want to know what they're saying. It's just the emotion that they're getting across.
Right.
And if they had the crowd there and the crowd was cheering, and to obscure a little bit of that a little bit more, it wouldn't have sounded as weird, I think.
Yeah, I thought it was weird that they bring the crowd in at all to pull them away. And Sisko's rationale of my team has never played in front of people didn't make any sense because they're holodeck people, so they're not real and they're all used to the holodeck setup and stuff. But like, I think the strong, like the only thematic stuff that I really get out of it is I think that casting Odo as the ref or the umpire is like a brilliant characterization.
Yes,
like he has to be the umpire, and I think that works. And he's flattered when Sisko tells him that he can think of nobody more impartial than he to come and umpire this baseball game. And the best joke I thought was when Kira walks by Odo's office and she sees him practicing his safe and out calls. I really enjoy for some reason, and he doesn't get into it as much there in the game as he does during his little rehearsal thing. But I like the little rehearsal thing, and it reminds me of the Naked Gun movie where Leslie Nielsen has to play the umpire and he starts getting into it.
I thought the little bits, the little character stuff like that was all really good. Like the other one I liked is when the game started and Sisko's like, come on, let's hear some chatter out there, and everyone's going, hey, batter, 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 and Worf just goes, death to the adversary.
Yeah. Worf's one-liners are great. When the guy doesn't tag home and they have to look for him, he just find him and kill him.
Yes. Oh, I did want to bring that up because I don't. The first thing I was thinking, because I wasn't entirely sure about the rules of that situation, because the first thing I thought was, shouldn't the guy on third have run home as well? Because I mean, if they're just standing around with the ball, you'd think the guy on third would run home. But if there was two outs, I guess it doesn't matter because once that guy who doesn't touch home is out, he's out.
Right. I think that's the reason why it doesn't matter. He should go home just in case that the guy somehow gets back to home base. But it shouldn't. It doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess that rule has been changed. It was accurate at the time of filming, but now if a untagged base runner leaves the field, he's out before. If he leaves the field without being tagged out, he becomes out at that point.
Oh, okay. All right. Because I wasn't sure if I thought something like if they didn't tag home, then they went to the dugout, they left the base path anyway, which would make them out regardless.
No, I think it's at the time of this, I was looking at the time of this, the rules allowed for what had happened to happen. It would never happen where the guy goes back to the dugout, I don't think, but it's an exaggeration of a situation that could actually exist.
Yeah, it was kind of funny because he misses the plate, registers that he misses the plate, and then just keeps walking.
Yeah, just goes to hide.
Yeah, he doesn't just reach back with his foot and touch the plate. He just keeps going.
Yep. And Odo does his best not to give away what's happened. He has to leave it there to be the impartial umpire of the situation. Yeah,
I will say.
Good.
I will say, however. So, okay, let's say if that happens, right? Let's say if he doesn't touch the plate and he goes back into the dugout and he's never tagged. And the other guy runs home. How long is that guy, the guy who doesn't tag the plate, is he in play? Is he in play until the next batter comes up? Or can you go through like 3 more batters and then go, oh shit, and then run over and tag the guy and he would be out?
No, once you throw the next pitch, his play is over. So he would be, I don't think they would score the run, but he's not out, I think. I don't know how they would handle that, actually.
Interesting. Okay.
It'd be confusing.
I was going to say that strike that he called on Worf was bullshit. That was nowhere. Even if it caught the corner of the plate, it was like ankle high.
And that's the case that they were pleading. It was low and outside, but Odo wasn't having any part of it.
So the other thing I thought was interesting, which I do find fairly accurate, is that maybe not anymore, again, maybe because the popularity of baseball is kind of dipping, but I feel like people at least as young as we are, and definitely older for the most part, mostly men, because I don't want to generalize, but more men play baseball than women do. Mm-hmm. If you ask them the rules of baseball, they know the rules of baseball. It was like so ubiquitous that anybody from America, anyway, could explain to someone else how baseball works.
Yes.
And I kind of thought that was fun how in this episode it was like, yeah, the people from America, they just know how baseball works and they can just explain it to everybody else. Yeah,
and they're wearing San Francisco and Atlanta hats. So like they're fitting into the part of what it is at that point. It's a strange game because it is like teaching someone baseball, it would seem very confusing, but it just seems so second nature to me. Like I never would have thought that baseball would be a relatively complicated sport, but it does have all these weird one-off rule type things like the infield fly or just the home plate runner and things like that, or just sort of like weird positional questions that would come up in the course of learning what the game is.
That's the thing. That's part of the thing I was thinking of too, where it's like, I haven't played baseball for 25, at least 25 years, probably maybe a little bit less than 25 years. But if there's a guy on first and second, and the guy on first decides to steal second, I know not necessarily to throw to second because the guy on third might run home.
Right.
Stuff like that, which is just like being around the game. You kind of osmote the rules.
Yes,
and even the small weird tidbits of the rules in different situations. So to hear them actually explaining it and people going like, "What?"
Right.
Just doesn't. It really made it stand out to me how ingrained baseball and the rules of baseball had been to a lot of American people.
Do you have anything else you want to say about this one? I don't feel there's a lot to really say about it. You either kind of like the episode or you don't. But I don't have any sort of thematic talk to have about it as we've discussed here because we seem more interested in like the baseball aspect of it than the actual episode. Mm-hmm. But do you have anything you want to say before we go to final thoughts? Yeah,
Scotch gum is brilliant.
A strange choice, right?
Yeah.
I guess it makes sense, but yeah, that's a the only the thing I noticed from that scene is how differently Alexander Siddig and Colm Meaney wear their belts. Like it's a different body type that allows for them to wear.
I didn't notice.
Wear their belts very differently. But the Scotch flavored gum, a good idea. And I'd also want to live in a future where I can infuse my gum with whatever flavor I want.
Yes.
Yeah.
I can't decide if Scotch flavored gum is a good idea or a terrible idea. Because imagine like you pop a piece of gum in your mouth and it's just that smoky, peaty flavor.
Endlessly.
I don't know if I would be down with that.
Well, also in the future, have they solved the problem of gum flavor going away? Or are we operating under normal gum rules where the flavor lasts for 30 seconds and then you're home free and you're just chewing on a piece of gum?
It would be a nice little tidbit if O'Brien was like, yeah, and it worked great, but for some reason I've tried like 8 different things and I can't get this flavor to stay in the gum.
It's just a running joke of his gum is the same piece of gum for like 8 scenes in a row where he's just got the same thing constantly chomping away at it. Yeah, Scotch flavored gum, a very strange choice. Well, let's go to final thoughts. We'll play an audio clip. Me and Clay will come back. give our final thoughts about Take Me Out to the Holosuite, and read some patron thoughts.
I fail to see why you are celebrating. Ferenghi's bunt was an accident, and you still lost the game.
You are absolutely right. And I couldn't be happier. Quark, a round of drinks for the house on my tab.
I'm way ahead of you, Captain.
You are attempting to manufacture a triumph where none exists.
I'd say he succeeded.
To manufactured triumph.
Manufactured triumph. Hear, hear. Hear, hear.
This is a typical human reaction based on emotionalism and illogic.
Did I hear irritation in that voice?
Certainly not.
That sounded positively defensive to me.
With a hint of anger.
And just a touch of jealousy.
And a lot of bitterness.
Are you always this emotional?
I refuse to engage in this human game of taunting.
Human? Did I forget to wear my spots today?
All that intelligence, and he still doesn't know what a human looks like.
Captain, do something else for your desk.
If you guys want to support the show, you can go to patreon.com/the Pensky File. It's the best place to go. Support the show, a couple dollars a month. You get extra things like extra podcasts. We're currently running through the Black Mirror first season, so you can get all your access to that. And it's a good thing to do if you're feeling generous. Thank you very much. Special thanks go out to our Captain tier supporters, Andrew Sherlock, Ben Douglas, Captain Quark, Cardinal Doomsday, Christian Pouch, David K., Eric Johnson, Dwayne Hackett, Icy Unicorns, Yarpy, Joint Mango, Kevin Reyes, Kyle Barrett, Matt Cutler, Matt Ross, Mike Burnett, Nathan Elliott, Neil Brennan, Nick Sergi, Robert Cummins, Russell Elledge, Samuel Custer, Grim Santo, Sean Spinobi, Tark Latif, Vault 13 Hero, and Will Yates. Thank you very much for supporting the show. It is much appreciated. Now we'll go to patron thoughts. If you're a patron on patreon.com, you can leave your thoughts about upcoming episodes, and we read them on the podcast. So, Take Me Out to the Holosuite. Point extra G. I'm a huge baseball nerd, not just a fan, a nerd, so I probably like this far more than I really should. The thing that amuses me the most, more than any of the jokes, are the things done to make the episode practical to film. Having Odo be the umpire so they don't have to explain away a shape-shifting player. Sisko removing the crowd so that they don't have to pay a bunch of extras sitting around the whole time. I think that they did miss a great opportunity to go meta, and they should have made the Federation Anthem the TOS theme. That's a good point. They never played the Federation Anthem again. I guess that's the only time.
I was going to say, is that the first time that we? I assume it's the first.
Yeah,
time
first and last, which is
also
too
last.
bad. Yeah. Yeah. Would you say that you? I guess his baseball nerd thing. Do you follow baseball at all at this point?
No.
I
followed it. I've never been like a stats guy. So following it, I enjoyed watching the team and stuff, but it was not something where I was like keeping my own box score or anything like that.
Yeah. You can understand why it was a sport that before the internet was so popular, just because you could do all of that stuff, and it's kind of like a little mindless hobby to track the numbers and things like that. But I like baseball on purely a statistical level now. I think it's interesting in that regard.
That doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, I just really, I like the. It's such a weird sport that is so individually important. Like it's baseball is literally a team of individuals who are playing, and you can track. It's not like soccer or football or basketball where there's like a teamwork component going on because only one person is responsible for their actions at a time. So it's a very limited thing where you can easily track someone's value and someone's worth and stuff in baseball. And I think it's interesting. I think it's done a good job. And Moneyball is my favorite sports movie of all time. So.
Yeah, that is a good one. It's also oddly, even though it's a sport full of individuals, it also is a very team-based sport, if that makes sense. Because let's say like basketball or even hockey to an extent, I'd say basketball is probably the most egregious. If you've got one really great player, they can do most of the heavy lifting for your team in a lot of cases. Like LeBron James does a lot of heavy lifting for whatever team he's on.
Right. You have four other role players who are average players can be fine in the right situation with a star player. Yeah.
But in baseball, you can't win a World Series just because your DH is an amazing hitter.
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
Or
your
even
pitcher.
I'd say I would say the closest you could get is probably if your pitcher was lights out, but even that doesn't count because they only pitch once every 5 days.
Yep. So he'll get 2 games out of the 5-game series before he's swept out of there or something like that.
Yeah.
Norman Buchwald says, that's right. Sisko is a big thing for baseball. How about we make an episode out of it? And let's make Rom be the one who's bad and with low self-esteem in the characteristic baseball story. And let's have the bullies and make them Vulcans as if they suddenly regress to the way Vulcans behave in the first season of Enterprise. I guess it was here Braga and Brana got the idea about how they'd go in that series. Bad news bears it ain't, and as amusing as it is to see Odo as umpire, it makes one wish a Jem'Hadar's ship would suddenly appear outside the station so they could quit acting out this hard-to-watch formulaic baseball story. 1 out of 5. It's going to be one of those episodes, I think, that splits opinion.
Yikes.
Dwayne Hackett says, here's the other side of that. The episode is pure fun. I think at this point the cast knew the show would be ending after this season, and this was their way of making every shot count. They took what should have been a C plot and made it an A plot. I think what works most for this episode is the sheer joy everyone has playing their roles. This is one of several unexpected gems this season. Even Odo gets into it. I laugh on each rewatch, and I'm not going to gripe about how unrealistically large the holosuite is. Just hearing Odo yell, "You're out," is enough for me. 5 out of 5.
I guess I can understand how you can really dislike this episode, but I don't know. It's so charming.
It's just so lighthearted. It's hard to get.
Characters are having a good time with each other. Everybody's friends. It's good team building for Ezri Dax to be involved in.
Especially
does that sweet backflip off the wall.
That was the strange. I thought it was Bashir who did that at first because it's genetically modified, but no, it's Ezri for whatever reason. I think
Fancy Dan over there.
Was that? I mean, it's. I think it takes a special place just because of its last season thing. It feels. It's definitely unusual to see the cast do something like Far Beyond the Stars. Like there's something really sort of shocking about them stepping out of the usual roles and doing something else with it. It makes you. It feels like a good finale type thing, like a good thing to do in your last season. Not that they've done it before or they haven't done it before, but it feels like it's that kind of a thing of just like we're moving on and we're going to get all these ideas out of the way that we've had.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Matt Ross says, okay, it's ridiculous, silly, having every sport cliche, but for me, it just works with its comedy and as a bonding episode among the cast. I feel you can see them actually doing this without the prosthetics as good friends offset. O'Brien's Scotch gum, there's got to be a market for that. Of course, Odo's the ump, the most assertive he has been for 3 episodes. Solok is played with prickish arrogance that is well conveyed, as well as the rivalry between him and Sisko. Plus, you get the Federation anthem. Of course, it has no words and is flown. I like the uniforms and the names, Niners versus the Logicians. Death to the opposition, just play ball.
How did you feel about the team logos?
I like the Niners one. The Logicians one is just the Vulcan symbol, so it makes there's not a lot of like change that they could do there, but I do like the Niners one. Yeah.
I wasn't sure if the Vulcan one was anything in particular, if it was just like, here's a bunch of geometric shapes, because they like science. Well,
it vaguely looks like a baseball diamond because it's a triangle.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure that's just the Vulcan symbol, like the Vulcan flag has that symbol on it.
I'm on the fence about the Niners logo. I feel like there might have been a better solution to what they were doing, but
they sell that stuff. You can buy Niners baseball hats and things like that, so it's out there. If people are interested.
Surprising.
It feels a little. I wouldn't say that they went balls to the wall in the design aspect of it. Like it feels kind of rudimentary in what they ended up with, but I don't mind them. I think it's fine for what it is.
I like the jerseys. I thought the jerseys were cool. Using the Deep Space Nine logo type for the names on the back and stuff. I thought that was good. I like that.
Will Yates says, this may be Worf's greatest comedic episode. I would love to have Odo as an ump at any softball game I'm in, and I could see how much you like tossing out the Vulcan. Speaking of the Vulcan, he may be the worst Vulcan at hiding his emotions in any 90s Trek. I wonder if he's a loser to the other Vulcans for that, and if he takes it out on humans because he can't hang with the big boys. This really shows just how different Sisko is from any of the other captains. It's not bad for a bottle episode, but I don't really care much about any of it. So there's the middle angle from Will. Kyle Barrett says, let me scroll down a little bit so I can get this. Isn't there a war going on? Oh, who gives a shit? This is just great fun. A thoroughly enjoyable episode, although I imagine you'd be hard-pressed to find someone who enjoys the episode more than Avery Brooks did making it. That's not gum he's chewing, but the scenery. I don't know the first thing about baseball, and I don't know if that improves the episode or not, but I loved it. It's rivaled by only Bluth versus Sitwell in the pantheon of baseball comedy episodes, and Worf's funny lines give this one the edge. Everyone talks about the episodes like The Pale Moonlight, showing what makes DS9 special, but I think episodes like this showcase the unique spirit of DS9 just as much.
Are you surprised for all the talk of the infield fly rule? They never had an infield fly.
I know. You think it would have come up at that point, right? I guess they don't want to. I guess it's one thing to like explain that, or to, to have a the characters discussing the rule as opposed to showing it on screen and having the audience go like, what the hell is going on? Why is this happening?
Also, I didn't realize if I heard them correctly that if it's a pop-up off of a bunt, the infield fly rule does not apply.
Yeah, that's an interesting take on it. I guess it makes sense, but you'd be hard pressed to. That is interesting. I guess you'd just be hard pressed to. It'd be hard to bunt a super high fly ball. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Because, yeah, I don't know, but that is a very like wishy-washy rule. You think one thing would be applicable or the next, but I guess it makes sense. It would be hard to imagine a situation where bunting would cause that kind of effect on a play. Let's see here. And just so everyone knows, the reason that's a rule is so that you, as a defense, you cannot just intentionally drop the ball to make double or triple plays out of it.
Right.
If people are curious as to why the infield fly exists. Because the base runners have to hold up if they're unsure if they can run or if they have to tag up. So as a defense, you can hold them up as long as possible by pretending to catch the ball. They can't advance on the bases. And then when you drop the ball, they are way behind where they need to be safe at the bag. So you can easily get double plays out of it.
Yeah.
Let's see, who did I read here? Captain Quark. Does anyone else but not buy O'Brien's injury? More like Malinger O'Brien, am I right? Anyway, this isn't a great episode by any stretch, but it's nevertheless enjoyable to watch, if only because it teaches us that the Vulcans can be dickheads too. We can easily pick this one apart, but as the moral of the episode tells us, and Avery Brooks shows us, sometimes it's just okay to have fun and ham it up. That was Captain Quark who left that comment. Last comment goes to Zam Nuclear Wessel. I love this episode, but must admit Worf's lines like death to the opposition and find him and kill him make me think of the boy he headbutted to death back in that soccer game. Maybe they hope we've forgotten that episode. At least there's no danger of him having to take a corner kick. It's true.
Yeah, how come Worf didn't have any reservations about playing a sporting event?
Should he had like some PTSD flashbacks while he's out there trying to hit a baseball?
Like that episode of South Park where Butters doesn't want to join the dance team because the time that he killed a bunch of people by accident.
Oh, Butters. That's it. Thank you, patrons. Thank you for leaving your thoughts about the episode. Thank you for supporting the show. Clay, on a scale of 1 to 5, what are you going to give this one?
4.
Okay. I'll give it a 3. It's a high 3. I feel bad about that, but I guess I'd have a hard time recommending anyone watch this one, as that's my rule, as to whether or not you'd show someone unfamiliar with the series this episode. I don't know if it really works. I do like it. I think it's good. There's nothing really wrong with it. It's fun to watch. But I guess that's it. And you're going to give it a 4 because you liked it a little bit more than me, it seems.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those episodes that I think after 7 seasons with these characters, it's just very easy to get behind and to enjoy. I did find myself thinking how funny it was that the episode starts with Sisko telling the Vulcan guy about how this is the front line of the war and how it's, really dangerous here.
Yeah.
And then as soon as the guy challenges him to a baseball game, he's like, all right, everyone, for the next 2 weeks, all you're doing is learning how to play baseball.
We've got tryouts.
What else is happening?
I know, yes.
But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, sure, if you really want to be like, oh, well, there's a war happening, why, but yeah, okay, fine, yes.
Yeah. You gotta find your fun in the darkest moments, as that episode in the card set or something. You find silver lining to every gray cloud or something like that.
Yeah, it's a TV show. Lighten up.
Yeah, I like it. It's probably better than the other 3s that I see it out there. It's just it's a tough episode to really fully get behind, I guess. But I do like it. I do think it's kind of cute and charming, and I like it when Star Trek steps out and does these sort of weird turns with things that you're not expecting. It's it opens your eyes to. Particularly, my big takeaway was like Avery Brooks continues to be. We've talked about this probably in the earlier seasons, where it's like, what a strange casting for the Sisko character, who's this buttoned up, sort of like emotionally repressed character, who's played by Avery Brooks, who seems to just want to pull out a jazz trumpet every time he's doing something, and like he's just so. He wants to play high energy, but I find his high energy acting to be unconvincing. You know what I mean?
I agree. Yeah. Yeah. He's very, we've said it before, I think, but he's very stage actory.
Yeah. Very theatrical, with especially the scene where you talk about where he's yelling at Odo, the ump. So like poking him dramatically. It's like it doesn't ring true. It just feels like he's really acting, but he really wants to play it this way.
Yeah.
Like he really thinks this is good.
Same when he was yelling at Rom, too. At first I thought he was just doing it to like get a rise out of him or something, because it was like, this doesn't feel super convincing, because he gets very short and he keeps talking about the right way to do things.
Yes.
And if you don't listen to him, then you are off the team. And I thought he was just trying to like, you know, bring in his energy up to get Rom to take it seriously. I didn't realize he was supposed to actually be mad. Imagine if your father, every time he was mad with you, decided to just talk very short and loud, and then you wouldn't really know how to deal with it.
No, it would be incredibly awkward. Biggest missed opportunity here, I think, for a joke would be when Sisko is waiting for Cassidy Yates to come back, and he's buttering her up with the flowers and everything, and being the good boyfriend, and as he's building his case because he wants to invite her onto the baseball team. I always thought that scene should end with them walking off, where Cassidy Yates has been like, aren't you being like the good boyfriend at this point? I always want Sisko to walk off and say, so what's your favorite position? just to segue into the next thing. I think that's a good bit for a joke, but
that would have been pretty funny.
We're done with this one. Take Me Out to the Holosuite. I'm going to give it a 3. Clay gives it a 4. I think that's our first divide of the season, but we're young into the season. Many episodes left to go before DS9 finishes up. So thank you, patrons, for listening. Thank you for leaving your comments. All the social media is down below. We have a new TeePublic store you can go to. I got rid of the Teespring because it was a huge pain in the ass. So now I got the TeePublic. If you guys want t-shirts and stuff, they're all there as well. You can go to the TeePublic link down in the links below. Patreon.com/The Pensky File if you want to go there and support the show. It's much appreciated. It is our goal to get to the Voyager full rewatch. If we make it to X amount of dollars before Voyager starts, we will do a full Voyager rewatch. Otherwise, it'll be curated, but that's out there as well. So depending on how important you view Voyager, that's your in. Clay, anything you want to say?
No, I think I'm plugged out at the moment.
We are done. Plug in, plug out, drop out, do acid, whatever that phrase is. We're going to sign off now. We'll be back with, I think, Chrysalis is the next episode. Let me confirm that. Chrysalis is the next episode. So we'll be back in a couple days with that one. Until then, guys, thank you very much for listening. We'll see you next time.